I don't know about you, but over the last several weeks, I've dealt with some mountains. The Bible says that we are overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. For those of you who don't know, I had a wonderful pregnancy and delivered a beautiful baby girl, Skylar Andrea Naomi McClendon, on July 22nd at 6:06 p.m. But after a beautiful pregnancy, we faced a turn of events. Just 1 week after giving birth to my precious baby, I experienced shortness of breath and a dangerously low heart rate. Mind you, Bishop, Dr. Nat, and Lauren were in South Africa. So it was Nicole, Pastor Caleb, and I in the States. So I wake up on July 29th. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I just feel like I couldn't breathe. And so I tell my husband, Pastor Caleb, I said, hey, I'm just gonna go sit in this recliner for a little bit. And I began to text my family chat, and I said, I'm scared to lay down because I believe if I lay down, I'm not gonna get back up. And that's how bad that I felt on the inside. And so I was texting my family chat, and they were like, what's going on? I said, well, I have a PCP appointment at 9 a.m. I'm just gonna wait till 9. It was 5 o'clock in the morning at the time. Nicole says, no, that doesn't sound right. I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna lay my eyes on you. I said, okay, that's great. I think if you come over, I'll be able to go to sleep and take a nap because I'll have somebody here. Pastor Caleb's occupied with the baby. Jackson is knocked out. And so she comes over, she lays her eyes on me. Media, will you put that picture up for me? I want to show y'all how I looked. This was me. And I had so much swelling going on in my face and my ankles and my legs, and she comes over, she pushes them, and there's this big indent in my ankle, and she says, that's not right. So we call our OB, we call a couple of family friends, and she said, I'm worried for you. I want to make sure that you don't have a blood clot that enters into your lungs. And so they say, you don't need to go to the PCP, you need to go straight to the ER. And so I found myself in the hospital for 3 long days, surrounded by doctors who were unsure of my diagnosis, but who also couldn't quite agree on my condition. So on one hand, my OB says, well, we know exactly what it is. You're dealing with preeclampsia. My blood pressure was through the roof. Normally, I'm a 110/70 kind of person. I'm experiencing high numbers, 100 on the bottom, really high at the top. And I dealt with a lot of swelling. And so when the swelling didn't subside, as I hoped, they said, well, your heart rate is low. I think it was what, Nicole, in the 40s?
30s.
Yeah, it was in the 30s. And so I was having a hard time breathing. I said, well, can you give me some oxygen? I'm still scared to lay down. And so what they did was they said, well, we're going to run a couple of tests. So they found out not only was there fluid in my ankles and in my legs, but there was fluid in my lungs, and there was fluid around my heart. So I had bradycardia and all of this. They said, we're going to move you to the floor of cardiology. So they took more tests to rule out blood clots and a number of things. And when I tell y'all, those were some of the hardest nights of my life. I was legit scared to sleep, so much so that when I would go to sleep, I would violently wake myself up because I felt myself slipping away. The only solace that I had was I heard my late grandmother say, not yet, Les. She said, you still got work to do. And so I tried my best to go to sleep. The next morning, thanks to my bulldog of a sister, some of them tests she made me repeat. I said, listen, this is my insurance, not yours. She need to pay the bill. They ain't like her. But how many of y'all know you need an advocate? And so that same morning, we had a cardiologist come in and update me on my diagnosis. And at that point, I thought I was feeling a tad bit better emotionally. The breakfast was good. They let me eat whatever I want. I was just feeling good. I was like, let me get that French toast with the bacon again. Let me get an extra side of eggs. You want something? What's going on? Y'all know how I am. I'm a big foodie. I like to eat. So I thought I was feeling better. The cardiologist comes in and he says, I want to let you know that your heart is enlarged. He said, you have a leaky heart valve. And he said, what you're experiencing is, and it was hard for me to hear it, but he said, you're experiencing congestive heart failure. And so you can imagine, just like y'all had those sighs, I had heavy sighs on the inside. And so what you're dealing with, he said, is congestive heart failure. And it was as if overnight I went from eating to what I wanted to be put on a low sodium diet. It was hard. I was struggling. So many questions running through my head, so many things that were unanswered. And in that moment, I'm going to tell y'all, I was no longer the pastor. I was very human. I felt every emotion that there was. I tried to keep it together, but that ain't work. Nicole comes in. She says, "How you doing, Les?" I said, "Not good at all." I mean, I broke, and I told her, I said, "I am not okay." Because I said, I'm 35, I'm healthy, I don't have any pre-existing conditions. Like, what is going on? Where in the world would this come from? Caleb's at the house by himself. We got a 6-day-old and a 6-week-old. And I'm like, what is life? Oh, zero, what?
6-year-old.
6-year-old. Look at this, I'm all over the place. But anyways, I was not okay. The doctor was a little crass, had horrible bedside manners. Nicole had to use the fruit of the spirit because she was about to cuss somebody out. And so he said things like that, and I was like, "Doc, what is it looking like? You know, am I going to live? What is this like?" And he goes, "I don't know if I'm going to live the next morning." And she was like, "You what?" I mean, it was a mess, y'all. We had to pray. And so I'm here facing a diagnosis of not only preeclampsia, but congestive heart failure, or what they believe to be peripartum cardiomyopathy. And my world is shaken because I've heard of things like this, the survival rate, how it's low. And during this time, I was forced to unplug from everything and just be still. I wasn't on social media. That's why you didn't hear my voice. That's why you didn't hear anything. I struggled with anxiety. Depression hit me. I was scared to go to sleep, so much so that my PCP says, go to Amazon, get one of those pulse oximeters so you can make sure that your blood oxygen level is good, and then you know that it's just anxiety. But in the midst of all of this, I still chose to put my faith in God. I sought the help that I needed, both medically, emotionally. I got myself a therapist. I did the work. And I still struggled a bit because going to the doctor, they always ask, are there any changes to your medical history? And so for the first time, I had to check on my chart that I had heart failure. And that did something to me. But how many of y'all know that God can heal a broken heart? I want y'all to ask me how I know. Come on, ask me. Because on September the 9th, at 9:20 a.m., I went to my OB, and she said, "Leslie, preeclampsia is behind us now." And not only that, I thank you for your prayers, because on that same day at 1:40 p.m., I walked into Riverside Cardiology, Suite 110, with Dr. Alexandra Ward. After getting another ECG, she comes in my office. I go in her office, actually. And my mother is my witness. And she looks at me, and she says, "Your heart function is normal." She says, "Your output is normal." She said, "And you know what I did? I took heart failure off your chart before I could even get in there. And I want to let you know that you don't have it." Now, I don't know if I was misdiagnosed or if it was a flat-out miracle. And when I tell you I don't care, all I do know is that late in the midnight hour, God turned it around and he worked it out for my favor. And I'm wondering, will somebody help your pastor? Give God praise that it worked in my favor. No more preeclampsia, no more heart failure, no more high blood pressure, no more taking medicines 3 times a day around the clock. God turned it around. And I believe the same way that God turned it around for me, there is nothing that is impossible for God to turn around for you. Nobody can tell me what God can and cannot do, because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it in my own life. So when I hear things like, "Let everything that has breath praise ye the Lord," I know what it's like not to have breath. So I refuse to come into this sanctuary and not lift my hands and give God glory and give God honor and give him praise, because I know what my God can do. So like the Bible commands us, I'm going to tell you, let everything that hath breath praise ye the Lord, because it's going to work. How many of y'all believe that? Now listen, I believe right now that there's an atmosphere of faith. And what we're going to do is we're getting ready to enter into a time of prayer. And Pastor Caleb's going to help me pray too. His faith was a little bit stronger than mine. What did you say? I told him, I said, I was nervous, I was scared. He was going to call the ambulance at one point. But this joker was like, that didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, at that point, I realized, I had a 6-day-old and a 6-year-old. I was like, she'll be back in a couple of hours. And those couple of hours, as she said, turned into 3 days. And in my mind, I almost refused the thought didn't even come across my mind that she could not be here. Literally, I was like, this sucks, but she all right. She gonna be all right. She coming back. And it didn't hit me until like a week after you were home, because we wanted Skylar to be born. Her due date was August 5th. We wanted her to be born August 3rd or August 3rd preferably. And she came 2 weeks early. And I told Leslie, I said, I just thought about it. I said, if Skylar was born on the day she was supposed to be born, I could have been choosing between my wife and my child, best case scenario, or I could have lost you both. And I was saying how there is even a divine inconvenience, because we weren't even ready for her 2 weeks before. But God knew His time is perfect. Wasn't planning on crying today. And He turned it around. So